In today's video, we will be going over the basics of building muscle along with some myths or misconceptions. The basics. The only way to build muscle is to have a stimulus. If you don't stimulate the muscle, it has no reason to grow. So you need to stimulate the muscle, but how do you do that? By lifting weights, obviously. But how hard should you train? How often should you train? What split should you be doing? How many sets, how many reps, etc. So, how hard should you train? You need to be training to failure or at least close to it. If not, your muscles are not getting enough of a stimulus to want to grow. If you don't train to failure or at least close to it when you first start lifting, you might see a little bit of progress, but you'll plateau very quickly and you won't be reaching your full potential because you're not getting enough of a stimulus. So you need to be training to failure. So how often should you be training? You shouldn't be training any more than 5 times a week. 3 to 4 is better. If you're starting out, you can train up to 5 because you're a little more primed for muscle growth just because you're new. The reason you shouldn't be training more than 5 times a week is because when you lift weights and if you train hard enough, you're not just getting muscular fatigue, you're also getting a systemic fatigue in your central nervous system. And if your central nervous system is not fully intact, then you cannot recover, your muscles cannot recover and grow. So you need to be taking at least 2 rest days. 3 to 4 days per week training is better, taking at least 3 or 4 rest days, training maybe every other day, training 2 days, take a rest day, train 2 days, and then take the weekends off. Something like that where you're not training every day. Do not train every day. Do not train more than 2 days in a row either. What split should you be choosing? The split you should use is whichever split you like the most and whichever works best for you. Whether that's push-pull legs, full body, Arnold split, whatever you do, it should be whatever works best for you. Personally, I train chest and back, take a rest day, train legs and abs, rest day, train arms and shoulders, rest day, legs and abs again, and then take another rest day, and then I start back over chest and back. So I'm getting a rest day and I'm getting my system and my CNS, my whole body gets a full 48 hours of recovery before I train again. Now that you have your training figured out, what should you be eating in order to maximize muscle growth? Depending on your goals and your body fat percentage, you should be eating in either a calorie surplus or eating at your caloric maintenance. If you're skinny fat, you should be eating either at a slight deficit or eating at your maintenance calories. If you're 15 or more % body fat and you're skinny fat, go into a slight deficit, 200 to 300 calorie deficit, no more than that. Because you're not getting enough calories, so you have less potential for muscle growth. Now, if you're in the 12 to 15% body fat range and you're skinny fat, then eat at maintenance. Don't worry about getting abs or getting shredded, because if you're skinny fat, 12 to 15% body fat, you're not going to probably be taking your shirt off. You only take your shirt off 1% of the time, and you don't look fat in clothes. So you'll be fine grinding out and just sticking to the maintenance and worrying about building muscle first. That's the main thing. Worry about building muscle. If you want to get lean and you want to build muscle, you can only do one at a time for the most part, unless you're on PEDs or you're brand new to lifting, stuff like that. There's certain circumstances where you can build muscle and get lean at the same time, but if you're 12 to 15% body fat, eat at maintenance. If you're under 12% body fat, then go into a surplus. You might not want to go into a surplus because you're like, oh, I don't want to get fat. And you might have been fat before and then you got really skinny and you're sitting at 10 to 12 body fat. You're really lean, but you have no muscle. So you might not want to commit to the surplus, the bulk, because you might get fat or you think you'll get fat. But as long as you're eating in a 200 to 300 calorie surplus at the beginning, don't go in some insane dirty bulk and go crazy and eat a bunch of junk, then you're not going to get fat. You're going to be gaining mostly muscle. You're always going to gain a little bit of fat, but you'll be gaining mostly muscle. Protein intake. You should be eating 1 to 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. So if you weigh 100 pounds, you should be getting 100 to 150 grams of protein every single day. I weigh around 165 to 170, and I eat 200 grams of protein, which that's on the higher end, but you don't need to eat that much. You only need to eat at least you need to be eating at least 1 gram or more. It all comes down to personal preference and your ability to get in protein. As long as you're getting enough protein and enough calories from the correct sources, from real food, chicken, rice. You don't gotta just eat chicken and rice. Pasta, potatoes, steak, beef, bison, spinach, sweet potatoes, any food that's not junk food. You can eat junk food about 10% of the time. If you have one cheat meal per week, you'll be fine, basically. Now, we'll get into some misconceptions about gaining muscle. As I stated before, you cannot be training every day. Like I said, it's not just your muscular fatigue, it's systemic fatigue. Your body needs to be fully recovered before you train again, or you cannot train as hard as you did the prior session. And your muscles, your whole body is not going to be able to recover if it's not already recovered. You're going to go in tired, unrecovered, and think you're doing more when really you're just making it harder to gain muscle. Another thing, do not train more than 1 to 2 days in a row. Some people can get away with maybe 3 days in a row, but you're really doing more harm than good if you're training more than 2 days in a row. Like I said, systemic fatigue. Another misconception when it comes to building muscle is that cardio will ruin your gains. As long as you're doing low intensity, steady state cardio, like incline walking, something low intensity, as long as you're not doing sprints, doing HIIT cardio, any type of high intensity cardio, you're not gonna lose your gains. And another thing, you need to keep your cardio sessions away from your weight training sessions. If you do 30 minutes of cardio and then go train, you're not going to be as energized, you're not going to be able to put in as much effort into the weight training session. And if you train after, your muscles are like just got stimulated, pause. And so your cardio is going to be adding to that stimulus and taking away from recovery. So put it at least an hour away. It's better if it's 2 or 3 or 4 hours away from your weight training sessions. And the last misconception that I'll talk about is rep ranges. A lot of people think you need to train 12 to 15 reps per set to gain muscle, that's the muscle building rep range, but it's not. 12 to 15 reps, you're going to get 8 reps of BS, and the last 4 reps, 4, 5, 6 reps, those will be the reps that are actually doing anything. So why not up the weight, go from 5 to 10 rep range, and have all of the reps be worth your time. If you're going in there doing 15 reps, it's a lot of junk volume. And another thing is the sets. People think you need to be doing 3 sets per exercise, 6 exercises per session, doing all these high amounts of sets and reps and everything. You don't need to be training in a high volume, because the higher volume you train in, the more junk volume you'll get and the less recovery you'll be able to achieve. So keep your sets from 1 to 2 per exercise. Don't do more than 6 to maybe 8 at the max sets per muscle group per day. If you train a muscle group twice a week, then it's different. But don't do more than 6 to 8 sets per muscle group per session. And don't do more than 10 reps unless you think you'll hit 10 and then you hit more to train to failure. But keep it between 5 to 10. Do a weight you can do for 5 to 10 and have your intensity high. So pick a weight you can do for 10 reps at the max. You can't do more than 10 reps. Maybe some half reps, maybe some assisted, some forced reps, something like that. But keep it from 5 to 10 reps and fail in between that 5 to 10 rep range. Somewhere in there, you'll be fine and you'll be getting the best stimulus for your session. If you train any more than that, you're just going to be getting a lot of junk volume and you'll be less primed for recovery. So we'll go through this one more time, just the basics. Eat at either a calorie surplus or at maintenance, unless you're skinny fat. You can go back to that part of the video if you forgot. Eat enough protein, 1 to 1.5 grams per pound of body weight, and train as hard as you possibly can and recover as hard as you possibly can. How do you end the YouTube video?
Thanks for watching.
I hope this information was helpful. New video every other day. Next video will be arm and shoulder day, and I'll show you some real intensity. Subscribe.